Right, we're going to create some layers, and we're going to create a style, which is the color by layer style, and we'll use that then to start modeling our geometry. So on the layers window, if you haven't got it loaded, window and layers, if we click the plus sign a couple of times, so about 4 or 5 layers, then we've got a few. So carcass is one, and this one can be called skirting. Another one can be called MDF. Another one can be called existing. Another one can be called hooks. And that'll do for the moment. Now, to make sure that all our objects are colored by layer so we can get a good visual feedback of what's what, and if you notice we've got a couple here that are close to each other, so on the carcass I'll just click that and maybe make it slightly greener. That'll highlight that. I think everything else is pretty much okay. So on the styles, and again that's window and styles, we need to right click on the current style. Now we need to click on the in model styles as well first. So if you didn't have that and you had sort of sorted styles or default styles, then click on the in model styles. These are the only styles we've got in the model at the moment. As soon as you start loading more styles in, they start appearing on this box or in this box here. To get rid of any that you don't want, you can click on that and purge unused if you've got any that you don't want to retain in your model. You can always drag them in later. They reside in sort of folders and files elsewhere, so they're not affecting the actual geometry or the style makeup in your model necessarily. You can always bring them in, and it doesn't matter what you do to the ones in model, unless you save them out and overwrite the existing ones, then they won't change either. So right click, make a copy, and then we'll call this one CBL, color by layer. It's just easier to type, and we want to go to edit, and under the model settings or the modeling settings, just click this one, color by layer, and then click on this to update, and we can click that back, and now we are good to go. So we now notice that all of this stuff is on our existing layer 0. If I was to hide that, then we'd see it all disappeared. We, however, want to put this stuff, so I'm going to click and drag around it. We want to move all this to the existing layer. Okay, so to do that, right click, entity info, and this gives us this little entity info dialog box. We've got 3 groups, 1, 2 and 3, and they are all currently on layer 0. So if we move this down to existing, then they'll change to the existing color. Okay, so we now know that they're on existing. What also happens is that as SketchUp does this, even though the sort of group of objects is on that layer, inside this group, if I triple click, then everything is on layer 0. Now these aren't affected by the color by layer style, but it's always worthwhile, just in case, putting these on to the existing layer also. So double click, triple click to select everything, and then move that down to existing also, and this one do a similar thing, so existing. So everything's on existing now, so there's no danger of anything sort of untoward happening with bits missing because we've turned off a layer that is inside the group, as it were. Right, so we are ready to start building our carcassing. So if you go back to our other drawing, now I just had a little crash, so I'll load this up. So here we are in the wardrobe drawing, and if I look at this, so I double click on this to make it active, and then we can kind of see, just it's a bit crude this, but I could have used one of the scenes. I couldn't remember which one it was. It's either scene 2 or scene 3. There we go, this will do. This has got the section planes turned off, and we're orthographically projected. If I use the tape measure tool, I know that I've got carcassing, which is 629 millimeters, which is ridiculously high. How has that happened? I'm obviously going back into the distance here, So if I click there and drag down, that's 38 mil, that's more like it. And this is off the base to the top. We are looking at 203, and this is 591. No, it's not. It is. See, this is. I'm using this because it's orthographic. It's going sort of into that instead of just straight down. So if I should pick from that end and drag down to this, it's 215 mil high. I've got a 38 by 38 piece of carcassing and go around, and this is forming a sort of a lattice which allows me to box out this bit. So I'll go back to my other one and we will start on the carcass layer. Okay, so the easiest way to create this, I mean there's lots of different ways, but just choose a rectangle tool. I could draw a 38 by whatever length, but it's probably easier just to create a 38 comma 38 enter rectangle, and then just push pull this up to some sort of height, triple click to select all the faces and all the edges, right click and just make a group out of this. I don't particularly want to make a component out of this as such, and then I'm going to use the move tool, so M on the keyboard or this icon here, and you notice that with the move tool, and providing it's a group or a component, you get these crosses appear. Now there are 4 if you zoom in close enough to these. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Hover over any one of those and then click with your left mouse button and then drag it round through 90 degrees, and you end up with a sort of horizontal stub of timber. Now this is going to be moved into the corner, so I'll just pick it up to move it there. Now because I picked it up from the top, it's aligned with the top of this surface, so again this is something that you have to be very careful about wherever you pick these things up from. Now I want to pick the back corner because I want that back corner to go into this back corner, and sometimes it's difficult. So this is where X-ray comes in especially handy. So on the styles toolbar, or you can set up a keyboard shortcut. I've set up X as my keyboard toggle, so if I hit X on my keyboard then it turns into X-ray mode. It's a fantastic little shortcut. The X key isn't assigned to anything else, so X-ray for key assigned X is brilliant. Then toggle that off again. Now I've got a piece of timber that is running along there. So what I need to do as well, I might as well, as I've got this like this, use the move tool. Okay, I've got this selected already. M for move, or again it's this icon here. Click on that corner. Okay, so I'm trying to drag it along the green axis because that's the axis which is perpendicular to this edge. So drag it on the green axis, tap the control key. Okay, and that creates, you don't have to hold your finger on the control key, it's a toggle, it's either on or off. So I'll track along here, and when it intersects with that, that's where I'm going to position it. Now I don't want it to position here because I've got some cladding to go around this, which is 12 mil thick, and I want the cladding to line through with the surface of this existing. So I'm just going to move this back 12. Now with this and with the other one, I can just use the scale tool, so I can select them both and hit S for scale, and then if not, providing I drag that middle one, I could have copied these up again to the proper height, then I can just move this to this edge, and that will do for a moment. I could guess I can fix through back to there, and then I'll finish this off by fixing some pieces across here as well. So as the top of this is 215, I want 203 from the bottom. So easiest way to do it, I love using the tape measure tool. It's such a useful tool for creating guidelines. 203, enter, that's my height. And again, the guidelines are by layer, so they show up quite nicely against this color. And then with these two, because they're still selected, M for the move, click on the top edge, tap the control key, and then just drag these up on the blue axis till they hit that point there. We're starting to create our carcassing. Okay, so with this, we might as well take one of these. I don't want to draw another rectangle at 38 by 38. So I'll take that, rotate through 90 degrees, and then P for push pull. It's this icon on the toolbar, and then just drag that down. Something like that. And all I'm doing is just roughly positioning these things and then I'll do some fine-tuning in a second. So again, position that there, and just to show you that you can push-pull through things, double click on this, P for push-pull, and I can't see that top edge, but I know it's there, and I can just click and drag to that point. So I'm going to do an array along here. Or in fact, before I do that, no, I'll do the array first. So I want these to be every sort of, I don't know, I want 5, say, along here. So I'll do a division array, and I'll click on this, make sure this is selected, use my move tool again, tap the control key to get that plus sign up, click, and drag a copy to the far end. Then it's /5 enter, and that divides this up equally spaced into 5 bits. I can then select all of these. I can move these from this point to that point. I can then copy these up like so. Now if I want to rotate these, I can't, because they are a individual series. I could either use the rotate tool, which is slightly trickier to use, but I'm going to use it to just demo this. So I've got the rotate tool, I'm hovering it over this surface, which is the red axis, and then I can hold my finger on the shift key to lock it out in that axis. So wherever I move it now, it's going to stay the same. I'll click at that point. This is my pivot point. The first point I'm going to click to select the objects is up there, and then I'm going to bring them round through 90 degrees that point. And then I can hit scale, and I can drag this from this midpoint out to line up with this edge. Is that what I want it to do now? I want it to sit inside. Well, I'll do that in a second. I'll move it to the back edge there, and I'll bring this in and move that to the back edge there. Okay, so just see what I'm doing. I've got the cursor and I'm hovering over the edge of this, and this is just pulling it in and inference locking to these points. So I've got that lined up with this inside edge, this lined up with that inside edge. Now I'm sure there's probably more that you would do if you were actually making this properly, but for the purpose of SketchUp, now I'm clicking on the corner, I'm moving it up on the blue axis first, so then I can hold my finger on the shift key to lock out that blue axis. Then I can bring it down, and as long as I hover over this top surface, then that's going to sit in that position there. So that's kind of how you would create the carcassing. Now the reason I'm doing this and not just sort of building a thing over there is that I want to work out how many lengths of timber I've got, and lots of other bits and pieces later on using the cut plugin. So that's why I'm creating all this stuff. So I'm giving you a kind of full view of how all this works. Now I'm going to come back, I'm going to finish off the carcassing on this point as well. I'm going to use these bits and rotate them through 90 degrees and stick them in there, and then when I come back we'll have all the carcassing done. Okay.